Morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering natural health on this your Wednesday morning rise and shine and give God the glory. And this morning here, I'm looking at some articles and sharing some ideas on various methods of dealing with depression. And so just looking at some of the issues that are going on and just talking about at the end some various methods of dealing with depression. So welcome again, top of the morning to you. Hopefully you had a blessed night rest and you're ready to take on today. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word and for the blessings, dear Lord, of the wisdom that comes from various different individuals about dealing with the mind, whether it be from your word and from the current information that's available. May you bless us as we look at these developments and these solutions for Christ's sake. Amen. So welcome again as we look at the various methods of dealing with depression. And by sharing with you two articles and then talking about some things to do to deal with depression, to lighten the mind. There's two articles I want to share, so I'll just share a text with you to start, and then I'll go straight into the two articles. And this very famous passage of scripture, famous at least here on Revive Reform Radio, which is in Proverbs 23, verse 29 through 35. And it says here, who had woe, who had sorrow, who had contention, who had babbling, who had wounds without cause, who had redness of eyes, they that tarry long at the wine, they that go seek mixed wine. And so it continues, and I'll read it in a second. But I wanted to say here, when he talks about who has woes, normally that's the problem with a lot of things in life. A person has a desire, a drive, a need, mental, physical need, and they need to satisfy it, or they have, just a longing for more fun and excitement, more energy, more calmness in their life, whatever the person is looking for. And somehow the drugs, whether it be liquid drugs, liquid meaning alcohol, ethanol, or whether it be any other type of form of drugs, it creates more problem than it solves. And initially, it's going to solve some problem. And the first article I'm going to share deals with some of the solution, quote unquote, seemingly solution. But if there's anything in this life that is truly like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it would be drugs, because drugs have its beneficial effects. But long term, and sometimes very initially, the drug itself creates more problem than it is solving. And that's the problem. And I can see so many young people in front of me and some old people in front of me now in my mind's eye who have gotten down this road of taking drugs to fix one problem and created more problem. That's what drugs is. Drugs is like the devil. He can come to you as an angel of light, but he destroys. And so who hath woe, who hath sorrow, who hath contention, who hath babbling, who hath wounds without cause, who hath redness of eyes. Who's going through these things? People who are becoming addicted to drugs. In the beginning, it seems like, oh, this is great. You can always see a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and they look just absolutely like, they're the man, they're the woman. And give them a few years and they look like the people in the community that has been whipped and beat by the drugs. And these two articles are going to cover the gamut. This is just powerful stuff here. I'm going to read, so I'll finish that quotation because you're so well familiar with it. I'm going to move right on. I'll get back to it later. I'm going to move right on to the first article, and it's about marijuana. This is the darling right now in the United States, and it seems to be the world over. People are in love with her, or hit, or whatever it is. So medical marijuana does not lower opioid death rates. Study find June 10. So this is Monday. This is written by Erica Edwards over there in NBCnews.com. And I always love this type of stuff because, you see, this is what they do. They try to tell us by, some slipshod type of research that the devil's things are good. Never good. Don't be fooled by these type of reports. So here's a report now that contradicted the original report a few years back. Legalizing medical marijuana does not lower the rate of death or deadly opioid overdoses, according to a study released Monday. The findings published in the journal proceedings of National Academies of Science may serve as a blow to those in the cannabis industry and even doctors who hope that laws in favor of medical marijuana might bring down the ever-rising rates of people dying from overdosing on heroin or other opiates. The intriguing promise of legal medical cannabis lowering opioid overdose rates was based in part on a 2014 study that showed that states that had passed medical marijuana laws by 2010 had about a 25% lower opioid overdose rates than states that did not allow medical marijuana. And I paused there because that was something that I heard. It's like it's going to be great. What marijuana for every problem in your life. That's what it is that they were saying. Continue reading the article here. It says, it would be wonderful if it worked, but it does not seem like it does, says the new study lead author, Chelsea Shover, a postdoctoral research fellow at Stanford University. About 47,600 people died in the U.S. of opiate overdose in 2017, according to the data from the Center of Disease and Control and Prevention. That's more than 130 people a day. So, I read that a little bit wrong. A lot of people treated it as evidence that medical cannabis could reverse the opiate crisis, Shover said at a 2014 study. But does that really hold up over time? In short, what we found was no. Indeed, even authors of the 2014 paper expressed caution at the time, writing, quote, although the present study provides evidence that medical cannabis laws are associated with reduction in opiate analgesic overdose mortality on a population level, proposed mechanism for this association are speculative and rely on indirect evidence. In other words, they're just basically saying, well, these states pass and these states have reduced, and we don't really know why. The lead author they're saying there from the paper. That was written in 2014. So Shover and her colleagues replicate the original study, but with expanded data to look at states that legalized medical marijuana through 2017. While they did confirm the preliminary 2014 finding, the results changed as the years went by and additional states passed medical cannabis laws. So in other words, when they look at the original states and look at that data from those states, they confirm that the authors were right. They seem to have a 25% decrease in deaths. What we found was the association between enacting a medical cannabis law and the rates of deaths from opioid overdose actually reversed over time, Shover said. When we did the study in 2017, the association was that states that enacted a medical cannabis law actually had higher opioid overdose deaths after the law took effect. So I'm going to read it again because I want you to get that, because this is the main point. When we did the study 2017, the association was that states that enacted a medical cannabis law actually had higher overdose deaths after the law took effect. So the death rate went up. Those states they found had about a 23% higher opioid overdose death rate than states in which medical marijuana remained illegal. With the benefit of the passage of time and more data, scientific community has a clearer view, she said. Experts not involved in the new research agree. Quote, we really have to proceed cautiously when we look at state-level findings to support or dispute the potential role of cannabis might have within the space of opiate epidemic. You cannot come to any casual conclusion. And this was stated by Ziva Cooper over there in UCLA. These are correlations based on a lot of things that are happening in these individual states, Cooper said, or continues. Indeed, Shover proposed a different explanation for the 2014 finding. States that passed the earliest laws legalizing medical marijuana, which are Alaska, California, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, tend to be wealthier, and they may have had more access to addiction treatment and medications used to reverse opioid overdose. So I'll pause there a little bit. Notice here the states that first pass, for the most part, are relative states, and states that are more liberal, and states that have better drug treatment and better, like syringe exchange and all these things that you can look at. You can see those states are normally more forward thinking. Alaska is the number one state for suicide anyhow, so they have a lot more resources to deal with people committing suicide and things like that. So again, Alaska, California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington state, these states are very liberal states. They're very progressive when it comes on to, openness about certain type of behavior. But the epidemic is in a bigger areas that not bigger areas, but areas that are more conservative and more less upfront about certain human behavior and failings. But here now they notice she says that the states that enacted it first were wealthier states. So we're not talking about Alabama, Tennessee, West Virginia, those states. We're talking about the richer states. So that's significant. And why this is significant? This is significant across the board with any human behavior. Any sin that a person does, or failing or bad habit, it is less devastating when you have money. See, money, as the Bible says, money answers all problems, or a lot of problems. Really, to me, that would be a better translation, a lot of problems. When you have money, divorce is not as bad. You're just going to lose half of the millions. That's all. But when you're broke, everything is harder. You go into the poor community, fornication is devastating. And the results of fornication. Go into the rich community, just pay for some doctor to get rid of the problem. It's a different issue when you have money. You can send your child to drug rehab all the time when you have money. You're poor, child gonna die. Everything changes when you have money. And so that's part of the problem. A big part of the problem is you go into a poor village somewhere in the middle of nowhere, anywhere in the world, and you let loose any opiate and create a crisis and flood that community, whatever, and the devastation is going to be way more than what we're seeing even here in America, because they're just broke. And that's why there's a difference between what's going on, say, in West Virginia with drugs and what's going on, say, in Washington state, because the two states are night and day when it comes on to money. But I digress, as they say, so I'm going to continue with the article and I'm going to keep sharing some thoughts. So this is a very important findings, because as I say, growing up in a poor part of the world, you see the devastation of drugs more. But here they glorify it because they have money. Everything wicked becomes more terrible when you're poor. That's just life. Quote, "We don't think cannabis was saving lives at the population level 10 years ago, and we don't think it's killing people now." I do. We think these two factors are separate issues. The study authors stress, however, that their findings should not derail research into the possible benefits of medical marijuana, even as it relates to the opioid epidemic. In fact, a recent study from the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai found that a component of cannabis called cannabidiol, which is CBD, could reduce craving and anxiety in people with a history of heroin abuse. We don't know what else will be found regarding medical marijuana. The research should absolutely continue, Shover said, but she adds lawmakers should not assume medical marijuana is an effective strategy for addressing opioid popularity, either for recreation or medical use, show no sign of waning, and much of it is driven by older adults hoping cannabis will ease a variety of ailments. A recent University of Colorado study found an adults over 65 generally use pot to treat pain, anxiety, depression, Indeed, data from the National Survey of Drug Use and Health shows a more tenfold increase in marijuana use among baby boomers since 2007. Currently, 33 states have comprehensive medical marijuana laws, while 11 states, including the District of Columbia, also have laws allowing recreational use. So, what's pushing this is people are in pain. People have anxiety. They're panicking, so to speak, panic attacks and all that. And they need something to sedate them, to calm them down, to put the chill on them so they don't go berserk. People are having depression, and so they need something to let all the troubles on their chest and on their shoulders fly away. Have you ever had troubles on your chest or your shoulders? And you just want it to fly away, to just disappear. Just let this problem disappear. That's what marijuana does. It just make it disappear. You know, you can imagine if you're home and your wife is upset with you because you're probably doing something worthless or wrong, and she starts screaming at you, and you smoke some weed, and you smoke the weed, and her screaming and shouting sound like music to your ears. It's like, oh, that sounds actually nice. That sounds like poetry. That's a good filter. But then here's the problem. You keep doing that to your brain, as I've said in other presentations, and your brain now is telling you that your noise is beautiful music. That's deluding the brain, and that's where my argument is that the more they study this and the more they encourage people, especially older people who are getting up there in age, to smoke more weed, because it'll make your trouble fly away. It'll make you feel light. You just take the burden, the pressure off you. It's the more you're going to introduce them to more problems. And now they're older. And I believe that many of these things are going to end up with more old people, older part of our society with more problems to do with brain and neurological problems. That's what we're going to have. And mark my word on this. This is going to increase the problems with old people. You're already old and their brain is not working. You know, we getting older, you start having a risk of dementia, Alzheimer's, all of that type of stuff. And now you're going to have marijuana deluding you to make you think that life is better than it is. And what could go wrong? So that's why the Bible says, who had woes? People who use drugs and alcohol. Who had sorrow? Who had contention, who had babbling, who had wounds without cause, who had redness of eyes. And now you're baby boomer now, and now you're taking that thing for relief and all of that. It's going to be a problem. So that's one thing that's happened. So keep that in mind. Most of these things has to do with pain, depression, and other problems that has to do with society, that are going on in society. So that's why people are using marijuana. But it is not a good solution. I do not believe it's a good solution. I believe it's a terrible solution. All right. Now, I'm going to move on to the second article, which here is similar. And it's entitled, written by the same person, Erica Edwards, over there at NBC News. And it is entitled, U.S. Death Rate from Suicide, Alcohol, Drug Overdose Reach an All-Time High. And the two big states they're talking about is West Virginia and Ohio. So I think this is very important, because remember now, the states that are having the best outcomes when it comes on to drugs are states that have money. You know, where mommy and daddy can pay for your drug rehab, or you're already a baby boomer, you have a lot of money that you can pay for your own drug rehab. But states that are reeling from this are states that they're broke. Drugs don't work where you're broke, and depression is, being broke is part of the problem. So notice West Virginia, Ohio. So death rate increase. So this is the freshest article. This is today. So this was just published midnight, I should say, 12:10 a.m. So this is Monday morning as they account it over here in the West. Notice here, so rates of death from suicide, drug overdose, alcohol has reached an all-time high in the United States, but some states have been hit far harder than others, according to the report released Wednesday by the Commonwealth Fund. The report examined data in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., taking an in-depth look at 47 factors that have an impact on health outcome, including insurance coverage, access to doctors, obesity, smoking, and even tooth loss, and ultimately assigning each state a score. The data are from 2017. Although the rates of the so-called death of despair are up nationally, the report's investigators were particularly struck by regional difference in the rates. When we look at what's going on in the mid-Atlantic states, these states are West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Those are the states that have the highest rates of drug overdose deaths in the country. David Radley, a senior scientist of the Commonwealth Fund, said rates in those states are at least double the national average of fatal overdose rate. West Virginia had the highest drug overdose death rate, fueled mostly by opioid epidemic. What's more, those rates rose by 450% between 2005 and 2017, according to the report. The rate of growth in drug overdose deaths in West Virginia is absolutely mind-boggling, Radley told NBC News. Now, here's the thing, and I want you to think about this, not too much. Okay, I want you to hear the article since I can think because I read it already. But here's the important thing. Now we're doing these landmark studies, which is, for me, is absolutely welcomed and fascinating, because it's one thing to tell a person that drugs is bad for you. All drugs, liquid or powdered drugs, is bad for you. It's another thing, because somebody said, well, you saying that because your religion? I'm like, no, no. Partly I'm saying it because of the Bible, but it's partly because I grew up, in Jamaica. So, so I saw firsthand the effects of cigarette and tobacco. You just see it, and then come into the Western world, you see the effect of tobacco. Tobacco was the big thing a few years ago, and you saw the devastating effect of that. So when you look at these studies are massive landmark studies, so much money being flooded in, especially this concept. And I hope you've heard of this concept, because this concept has become a coined concept by these social psychologists or sociologists. And they came with this idea of despair debt, where a person just have no hope. They're just all messed up. Nothing is going on for them. Relationships fall apart, they have no job, and all around them is death and decay, and somehow they feel despair and they turn to drugs and alcohol, which is what the Bible says anyhow in Proverbs. If you not going on for you, just go drink some alcohol and soothe your miserable life, so to speak. But here's the thing that I find fascinating in human behavior, because this despair debt has been happening in America from the 70s. It's happening in black communities when they lost their jobs. Now, in these areas, what we call the Rust Belt, because that's another way to call it, because you call it Mid-Atlantic State. But another way to call it is called it Rust, R-U-S-T, the Rust Belt. The Rust Belt is where they lose a lot of the manufacturing jobs, a lot of the jobs to do with coal, a lot of jobs to do with steel production. And in these Rust Belt areas, the end result, where nothing is going on for them, everything is a failure and falling apart, that drugs and alcohol become an epidemic, or is endemic to the area. I don't know how you say it. This is what's happening. But these studies, we could have been ahead of the game if we had see as a country that what was done to all the black cities across America, what conservatives call liberal strongholds. And they don't associate the leaving of the jobs and the unemployment of the primarily male, the black male, and then the imprisonment of the black male by using the drugs, the crack epidemic, to imprison them and fill the jails and create a prison industrial complex. That was done, created a debt by despair. that people soothe their pain with crack and cocaine, and they die at high rates. So these studies could have been done, and then we could have known what exactly is going on, and there would be no guess game. We could see that when people are poor and they have availability of something to soothe their pain, then they'll take it. Despair, worthless. You find when people feel worthless, then you start looking for the drugs. The drugs is somewhere. Where's it at? So that's what makes this fascinating, because this is like some eye-opening stuff here. You talk about Ohio. Ohio keep coming up. What a place. So West Virginia have highest rates. West Virginia had the highest rates of overdose death, fueled mostly by the opioid epidemic. What's more, those rates rose to 450% from 2005 to 2007. So that's a massive jump. It's not just prescription painkiller and heroin that are driving these death rates. The study also pointed to fentanyl and other potential synthetic opioids that are creeping into illicit drugs such as cocaine. Fentanyl is similar to morphine, but 50 to 100 times more potent, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse. So this is something that is going on, that is fascinating in the thing. So, morphine is a powerful painkiller. A smaller dose of it will take away your pain. So it is just fascinating to think that a person could be taking something 50 to 100 times. So if you're in pain, physically or mentally, this thing really could numb you. Just numb you. All right. And this is now, it says, creeping into cocaine sales. That's what I'm understanding. It's very difficult to understand how they wrote this. I read it like about 5 times because it seemed like what it said. Notice it says here, other potent synthetic opiates that are creeping into illicit drugs such as cocaine. So I'm assuming when they say creeping in, I'm assuming they're saying creeping into the sales. That's what I assume. I tried to read it literally like 5 times and I can understand what they're saying fully, because I think that's what they're saying. Now I'll pause there again, because I want you to get what they're saying. If I'm right what they're saying here, the way the person wrote the article is structured so funny here. But if I understand what they're saying here, they're saying, look, which is what I assume. The cocaine is a more expensive drug. Fentanyl is more powerful and cheaper. And so the problem is not per se the drugs. The problem is why the person is taking the drugs. So if I'm taking drugs to take away the pain, so my pain can just fly away like a dove and I could be at rest. My pain from what's going on around me. And I'm taking the drugs and I find out that, cocaine is an upper for the most part and so forth. But it's a numbing. It makes me feel positive when nothing is positive around me. And I'm taking this. And the saying is that people who have money take cocaine, people who are broke take crack and other drugs. But if I have $100 or $1,000, and my aim of taking drugs is just to take away the pain, I'm on drugs anyhow. I have no self-control. I'm going to go for the drug that's going to give me the most bang for my buck. That's what people do. That's why places like Walmart and stuff will always make money. You're just looking for the cheapest deal. And it's hard to exercise self-control to say, I'm going to go buy products that are said fair trade. That means the farmer get a cut, not just the people at Wall Street. That's difficult to exercise, even just buying products, much as if you're an addict. How do you say, I'm only going to do fair trade drugs? You're not going to do it. You're going to take the drugs. But this experiment has been run already, because if you remember back in the 80s, and I've covered this here, where if you go look in the research, you find that President Reagan had paid reporters to only report the crack epidemic in black areas, but never reported in white areas. But the CDC came out a few years ago and say, actually, crack, even in the 80s and 90s, was bigger in the white community than in the black. And I said, that's absolutely logical. Why is it logical? Because, you've lost your discriminating power, your self-control power. Your frontal lobe is not working. You're just looking for a high. You're not worried about if the high come from the back of a toad. You take that frog up and lick it and get the chemical high that the frog gives. If you know what I'm talking about, DMT. So if you want a high and you say, oh, there's a frog, I'm like, I ain't gonna kiss no frog. It's not gonna turn no prince or princess when I can kiss it. But if you're looking for a high, you'll be like, yeah, it's gonna turn a princess. Give me that frog. And you gonna kiss that frog. And you gonna get a DMT high. That's the reality. I always wonder, who was the first person who thought that the pus on the back of a frog will give a high similar to, LSD or something like that? It is fascinating stuff. I don't know where they figured this out. But anyhow, so this is literally what is going on. And as I say, the experiment could have been run a long time. Now we're running these research. And it is true that if you're broke especially, you're going to be like, forget about cocaine. Give me that fentanyl. It's going to make me feel good. So notice here, following the West Virginia, so these are what's going on. So the places that are having the worst experience is number one is West Virginia. All right, West Virginia. Then next is District of Columbia. So I don't think this is the lawmakers. This is just the rest of the people that live in D.C. Kentucky, Delaware, New Hampshire had the next highest drug overdose deaths rate in the country. So think about it, where all these lawmakers work, where they have the second highest amount of people dying from opiate, cocaine. So drug over in the country. So this is what the report is saying. Death rates from suicide and alcohol are showing regional disparity. People died at higher rates from suicide or alcohol than from drugs in Montana, Nebraska, the Dakotas, Oregon, and Wyoming. So when you think about like those Midwestern states up there in the cold, they're dying more from alcohol. And that's kind of seemed logical to me, because I remember when you always see the alcohol advertisement for, I think, Miller Lite and Miller, they always advertise it as from the Rockies. That's where people drink alcohol to stay warm. So that's where they're dying. So they're dealing with something else over there, but they're still dying of suicide and drug overdose. The drug of choice, most centrally, is beer or alcohol, probably vodka, I don't know. So beyond these rates, the reports look at 44 other factors that influence population health to determine each state's ranking. Now, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Washington, Connecticut, and Vermont rank the highest. So they were the state that have the least amount of people dying from drugs and alcohol and suicide. So Hawaii was number one. So Hawaii had the lowest rates of suicides. I guess eating tropical fruits and looking at beach is a good thing. Connecticut and Vermont tied in the ranking for 5th place, while Arkansas, Nevada, Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi received the lowest ranking. So again, you can see despair. Despair could be a few different things. Despair could be just simply a whole lot of things. I'm going to come back to some of those in a second. Just watching my time here. So notice here again in that list, you can't see it, but you can go over to NBC on the health section. You can see the articles, and you can see that some of these things start to become very logical. This is what I'm saying. A lot of talk about drugs, you have to watch people when they talk about the pro drugs, because they ain't not logical. The drugs have them fooled. It tricked them, and they start to talk all kind of positive things about behavior that's not positive. And we need to find natural solutions, which I'm going to touch on in a little bit. So notice Arkansas, right, is that state right next, is down the southern part of the United States, near Oklahoma and Texas. So you can see that you almost can see it in your mind. You come down the Midwest, there's alcohol, and then you come down to Oklahoma, Arkansas, and then you come over to Alabama, Mississippi. You go back up, and you come all the way back up to Tennessee, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and then DC, because it's hot down there. So that region, you can see that's the despair debt. And if you think about it now, you take the same map, you take a map now, and you overlay what we call the Bible Belt, and then you overlay upon it the conservatives, and you're going to see that that map becomes very, very similar. So Arkansas, Nevada, this is where prostitution, I think, is legalized. It's another craziness that they do over there, and drug, gambling and all that, boxing, all that stuff. Texas, right? You see that? Oklahoma and Mississippi, and then for opioid, fentanyl, you come back up to Tennessee, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. Fascinating. There's maps on the article. That's what I'm saying. Easier to see it if you look at the article. I'm just going to give you a mental picture. What separates the top rank from the lowest? Healthcare coverage. I think there's more, but we go with that. We really think the healthcare access of being the foundation of a higher performing healthcare system. The states that rank at the bottom of the list all had the highest rates of residents without health coverage. Without the ability to go to a doctor when you need to, you are much more likely to end up getting sick in a way that puts you in the hospital with a manageable disease like diabetes. So no doctor, your diabetes get out of control. In 2017, 5 of the 17 states that had not expanded access to Medicaid through the Affordable Care Act had the highest rates of uninsured adults. So notice here again, the study was in 2017, as these are the 2017 numbers. So the latest numbers. So out of the 17 states that had not expanded access to Medicaid through the Affordable Care Act at the highest rates of uninsured adults. States' decision about whether to expand their Medicaid program have had stark implications for their uninsured rates. Massachusetts, which expanded Medicare access and also provided other assistance to offset healthcare costs, had the lowest rates of uninsured adults in 2017 at a 4%. Texas, which declined to expand Medicaid access, had the highest rates at 24%. So think about it. Mississippi, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Again, this becomes very self-explanatory. But rising costs also affect people who do have healthcare coverage, according to report. Healthcare costs are going up, and that's translating to higher premiums. Higher premiums gets passed on to employees, Radley says. He points out in Louisiana, for example, working families spend an average of 10% of their income on healthcare premiums. That's money that is spent before out-of-pocket costs such as prescription and copay. Other southern states followed similar trend. The average employee out-of-pocket healthcare insurance contribution were at least 8% of income. Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and Delaware. The report author said there is evidence that the expansion of Medicare access had a positive impact in even states leading the nation in drug overdose rates. West Virginia is an example. The state expanded Medicaid in access in 2014, which paved the way for increased access to substance and treatment. All right, so I'll pause here before I finish up this article. It's almost done. I remember when President Obama ran the first time, and if I clearly remember, he didn't even one time set foot in West Virginia. Wouldn't be allowed there. Very fascinating. Because he was the president that was going to redistribute the wealth and help poor people. Yeah, the southern state, the conservative state, they're like, nope, put an X beside, not an X, because that probably would mistake and vote for him. Can't have that. Because we are the states that were previously Jim Crow and slave states, so we can't allow good treatment for people who are poor and less fortunate. I remember just before he left office, he started pushing hard to get help for West Virginia and end up going there to help the opening, or did one of the opening for one of these treatment facilities, right? For drug overdose. And I was thinking, that's so ironic. That's all I think. Not pro, because there's things about it that I'm not in agreement with. But I'm not pro, but I just thought the irony of the situation. Because here you have somebody that was so hated because he was going to take away the guns and he was going to redistribute the wealth to make some poor people get some health care and other benefits. Obama phone and all that. And I'm like, I couldn't see anything wrong with that. But anyhow, indeed, a study in John Hopkins, back to the article, a study in John Hopkins University found treatment rates for opiate abuse rose in West Virginia, who became eligible for Medicaid after the ACA was implemented. By 2016, 3/4 of people with opiate addiction had been prescribed a drug used to treat their dependency. Just imagine that. That's up from less than a third before West Virginia expanded Medicaid. Specific state-by-state information can be found at Commonwealth Fund interactive tool. You have to put in Commonwealth Fund and you see the information there. If you or someone you know is in a crisis, call the National Suicide Prevention Line, which is 800-273-8255. Text, or you can text capital HOME to 741-741. I guess you just text home 741-741. And then you can speaking of suicide.com/resources to get additional resources. So if you know somebody that's going through these despair and all that, you can get some help there. And as I say, we here try to always discuss this topic because it's a sad situation when you're depressed and you feel like all hope is gone. You feel like nothing's going on for you. Everything is as a wash, a failure. And this can become very depressing. And I think this was a trick, because the trick was playing on people's hopelessness. It's not 100% they to be blamed for pushing an agenda that basically shoot them in the foot. But if you ever hit yourself with a hammer or drop something on your toe, oh, it hurts. Oh, man, it hurts. Man, that's a painful thing. That the nerves picks that up so much and you feel pain all over your body. And that's the problem where, this push where we don't want, because to me the issue is the death by despair. Before I go into some of the solution, this is one of the solution. The problem is the death by despair crowd and areas. Texas, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. These areas are the areas that seem to have this entrenched idea that we in a capitalist country. We all need to make it. We don't need to help nobody that's less fortunate. We don't need to help nobody that's poor, widows, strangers, old people, people who are not winning, they're losing. And if you have that philosophy, you'll be more suicidal when you're losing. You see, so that to me is the philosophy is part of the problem. The philosophy to me pushes depression. If you have to get handouts and get freebies, and you believe a person who gets handouts and freebies is the scum of the earth, is a worthless, is a welfare queen, it's all the disparaging thing that is said. And these areas seem to be, the bigger issue to me is not the drugs, is the philosophy. Because these areas seem to be the areas that people talk the most of this type of craziness. And to me, it's crazy. And so when you talk like that, if you now become one of those people that lose your job and lose your money, and you now need a handout, you're going to be very depressed. If you're one of these people that talk disparaging against people that are on drugs, And some of it, most of it, a lot of it is for no fault of their own. They were in pain, they get prescribed medication, now they're selling themselves and their body to get money to buy drugs. And you don't understand, these people need mercy, they need love. You will be, if you get into the same situation, will be more susceptible to suicide than anybody else, because you have a philosophy that only you gonna have to pay your way. And the problem, as you know, with life, and the Bible says it very clearly, that don't set your heart on money, because you'll take wings and fly away. And when your money gone, and you have created a world that is mean and wicked to those who are poor, you will go off yourself. Because you know what happened? Hey, you say a person who live like that is worthless and shouldn't live. They have no right to live. But if you have a philosophy where, man, come on over here, man, come eat some food. Come eat some food. Somebody said, well, but the food is free. Yeah, man, the food free, man. Come eat the food, man. And you have that philosophy, be like, hey, man, you know, you never know in this life. It's okay. You know, there's some people that is not going to become a PhD in anything. They're not going to get their 4-year degree or multiple degree. They're not going to even finish high school. And there's some people with disabilities, some people with learning difficulties. There's so many reasons why people will never be the next, you know, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates and stuff like that. It's okay. Come over here, man. Come eat some food. Yeah, we all right. We have a little extra we can give you. And we can keep giving you. But this is, to me, the problem. And you see, this to me is a social problem. Because if you think about it, the areas that are having these death by despair are areas also that are having an obesity problem. They're having health insurance. All in the criteria, 47 criteria that can negatively impact you. They're having problem with having their jobs. The jobs have left and gone abroad. They gone to China, Mexico. Now we're fighting China, Mexico. So the initial, in the 70s when the jobs were sent abroad, they were sent abroad to hit the black community and mess them up. But now you put these corporate guys, these globalists, you put blood in their mouth. And now they wanted all the jobs shipped abroad to China, Mexico. Now the jobs are in China, Mexico. They be like, oh, we need to fight with China, Mexico because we have a deficit. Hey, you all crazy. You shoot yourself in the foot. And I say, I've dropped all kind of stuff on my foot. And all for days later, I'm feeling pain. Why would they do that? But that's what they did. So to me, the bigger issue is, if you think about it, the people philosophy and the states that they're in and the philosophy of their lawmakers and the people, because it's both, have a philosophy that we don't take care of you unless you can make your own money. We don't care about you. That's the problem. And that's what I see is the problem. When you're around people who you can't get sick, you can't fall into poverty, you can't go into bankruptcy, you can't experience a divorce, you can't experience drug addiction, you can't experience a whole plethora of things that happen to people. You know, you could be a game, you could be exercising, you'll be healthy, you look good, you look great. And if for some odd reason, I don't know why as human beings we do this, we get knocked off for a game. And next thing you know, we start putting on 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds. Next thing you know, we lose our job. And then things just go in a rut, in a free fall. And that's why, to me, I love the Bible, because the Bible talks about grace. It talks about forgiveness. It talks about mercy. Christ said the way they matter the law is judgment, mercy, and faith. You got to be merciful, because you know that we as human beings, we fall apart. We can just fall apart, fall off the horse. And you look at these are areas where they've fallen off the horse in multiple ways. But yet these are the areas that have the most entrenched philosophy that we should help the poor. Which is where I find fascinating. They're the most blind when it comes out to proper judgment. So you think about it. The areas that have the highest obesity, high unemployment, high suicide, high alcohol use, high drug use, a whole bunch of high stuff. Boring places, some of the most boring places to live. And then you sort of look at the map again in your head. Pennsylvania, Ohio, they're all Rust Belt. You know, go straight across. Illinois, go straight across, then come back down. And you come back down to the Dakotas and come around to Nevada, they say, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, come back Mississippi, Alabama, come back up, Tennessee, some parts of the Virginias. boom, and you come back up to West Virginia, Pennsylvania. You take that whole section, and that section would tell you, we don't help. So now, because I've asked people, and everybody have gone quiet in this, the world that you have created, the philosophies you live by, if you fell into poverty, would you be happy with that world? And that's the question that you and I have to ask. Because sometimes we've put people in a position where if we were in their position, we would be like, you know what, where's the gun? I'm going to blow my brains out because I can't live in this world. And that's the problem. Because in these areas, you know, there's if you look at the numbers, a lot of parents have left from these areas and come to places like New Jersey and New York because they have an autistic child. Think about that. Because they have an autistic child, and they find that in the more areas like here in New Jersey, New York, where they're more liberal when it comes on to taking care of people who are less fortunate, that the social system is more powerful, so they have left and come to areas like this. You find areas like Washington State and Oregon and California are more liberal when it comes on to taking care of people on drugs and fall into poverty and homeless. So you find people leave from many of those states and find themselves over into Washington. Go flood that area. Oh, that's not a good thing per se, because I believe we need to have better methods of dealing with homelessness. But I believe, again, what Christ says, mercy, judgment. Because the areas that would say, oh no, we need to kill Obamacare, we need to kill the Affordable Care Act, which is called Obamacare again. We need to kill anything to do with taking care of the poor. We need to whatever. Those are the states that people are killing themselves the most when they fall into despair. This is where when people lose their job, they decide, oh, it's time to die. Life is not worth living. But I can bring you places like where I grew up, and there's the suicide and death rate and the depression rate would be low, at least when I was growing up. And people nothing's going on for them. They ain't killing themselves. Because, you know, it's not a thing, you know, it's not, oh yeah, you mean to be making it, you need to be in a capitalistic mindset. And remember, in places like that, there is no social security and no affordable care, nothing. You're going to suffer if you're sick. You're going to wait in line. You'll wait in line even if you have insurance. Much less if you don't. But people that the despair is not as high. Because it's okay to be broke. It's okay to, you know, have a neighbor that will give you something. It's okay. You know? It's just, nobody think about it. I always remember, there's this thing called ackee. Really love ackee. So we're talking about natural health. And it's a Jamaican national dish. All right, it's a fruit that's eaten savory. It's a savory fruit. It's not really a fruit. It's kind of a fruit, but it's very high in oils. It had a lot of omega fatty acid. So anyhow, I like that thing. But I remember I had one of the trees in my yard when I was growing up, and I would find this lady. I live in a community, and I'd say, "Hey, look, you want some ackee?" And I'd go pick the ackee and then bring it to her. Because I'm trying to get rid of the thing. It's painful to think about it. That was good for her, but now I think about it. I think it's expensive to get it here, but I love it. And but I used to give it away, and I never really think, oh man, that lady's worthless and she's no good, and she's dependent. I was just thinking, who can I give this thing to? Because they're going to spoil, and the birds only can eat so much, and I only can eat so much, and it was just me alone really eating it from a whole tree that you could climb. It's a tree you could literally climb and pick. So I pick it by the bag load and bring it to her and say, hey, here we go. You eat this for me. Help me out here. You know, I would try to get rid of it. Now I want it. But I just the idea that we have a society that think that if you help those who are less fortunate, you give them a little money. A fraction of what we spend from warmongering and destroying other people's country, it's going to hurt the society. So here we have a problem now. They can show definitively that people who have less health insurance have less care. The legislator care less for them because the legislative philosophy is the only important thing in this world that we need to do from a legislative point of view is to ban abortion. That's the only thing. Everything else, we couldn't care less of our citizens dying. We couldn't care about the fatherless, the poor, the widow. But because we don't care about nobody. That's it. Unless it's oppression, we don't do. So notice here, access to doctor, obesity, smoking. That's why I don't believe in marijuana, because I believe if you legalize drug and make more people take drugs, what you have is it's a drug infested area. What really is going to happen is that people are going to always turn to the drugs when they have problems. They're not going to turn to other solution because it's drugs. So the moment a person knows that drugs will fix my problem, you're creating more drug addiction. People need to find other solution for their problems. That's where the problem comes in. And I think the lawmakers and stuff don't understand the psychosomatic or the mental part of drugs. The moment a person knows that if I feel depressed, I go to drugs, then the drugs of choice doesn't matter. What you have done is taught the person a bad behavior. So instead of facing their problem, trying natural solutions, they say, I have a problem, let's turn to drugs. That's where the problem. So it doesn't matter if you legalize. The more you legalize marijuana, all you do is create a drug addict. Not marijuana addicts, but drug addicts. They'll turn to cocaine. I grew up seeing that. And so some quick notes here that I was supposed to get to, I didn't get to. But you're familiar with my talk. So you're familiar with what I'm going to say here next. So know that there are certain treatments that can be done real quickly for depression that are natural things. When somebody's pregnant, one thing you have to do is help people when they're at the wit's end. So pregnancy, loss of job, anything that a person is going through a down, that is an obvious down, even if they're not saying that they're depressed, you need to give them extra love and care, lighten their burden, go over there and babysit for them, give them some money. Give them a little part-time job. If you have a little job in your yard and it's a $50 job, make sure they have that job. Just anything to give the person a little job, a little money, a little help. Do it, because this is what these despair deaths are happening. People are in a slump and they can't get out of the slump. And what they need is more love. They don't need more hardness. This is enough coming from the society. So another important thing to do when you're in a slump is to try to get to regularity. Even if regularity mean you just go pick up the mail at a certain time of the day, get out of your house, go to church on a weekly basis, volunteer something, do something and create a habit. Wake up at the same time, probably when you were going to work or probably an hour later, but wake up at the same time every day. Brush your teeth at the same time, put on clean clothes at the same time. I myself, sometimes I'm doing yard work, I dress decent. Because the way you dress make you feel a certain way. If you're going through a worthless slump in your life, you dress worthless. You will feel worthless. Brush your hair, comb your hair. I've had it where I have to talk to people who are depressed. They come to church and I said to them, you didn't comb your hair. Like you got to comb your hair and brush your teeth. Even if it's once a week coming to church, just brush your hair and comb your teeth. Come on. It will make you feel better about life. So regular schedule is important. Bright lights, you go on Amazon.com. That's the easiest way for me to find you and find the SAD light treatment. It's the capital SAD light treatment. It's a treatment to try to bring some light into your eyes. Go for like a half an hour to hour long walk and do this every day if necessary. 5 to 7 times a week, go for a walk and then do exercise. I'm going to tell you, if you lose weight, if your body is feeling nice and cut and hard, it'll make you feel positive. You just feel positive because you feel good and look good. That will just lift your spirit. Eat a vegan diet, a plant-based diet that have a lot of fruits and vegetables in it, and avoid thinking and saying pessimistic things. Life is okay. Just look at it and say, if you lose your job and you feel depressed, that's okay. Just say to yourself, I'm on a sabbatical. I've been working all these years. I need some time off. I'm going to just sit around and pray, study, and shoot the breeze, look at the clouds, and just enjoy some life. It's okay. That's your season. You're going through a season of, down. So just take it on the chin. Don't take it too hard. Go exercise and go take care of your body. At least you're going to be unemployed or you're going to feel depressed, but look phenomenal, feel phenomenal, and go around people that are phenomenal. And if you feel too depressed, come and visit me at Covenant Advent Church. You'll feel better. Let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of your word. Thank you for the blessings, dear Lord, of this day. For the sunshine, the light, the food, the blessing you give us, that whether we're up or down, we know that you're for us and you're guiding all things. You have all things in your hand. I pray for those, dear Lord, who are hooked on drugs and alcohol, that they may find thee, find solace, find peace in their soul, and be able to get off these damaging substances. Bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning, where we talk about current events. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.